Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Kandee Wallace on the podcast. She's coming to us from a much warmer climate probably than mine, but hey, we're not going to really get into that, everyone. Yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Kandee, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your Instagram page lists you as a model, artist, bodybuilder, hippie. It's a lot of stuff. You're a lot of things rolled into one, basically. So why don't we get things started? We can talk about the bodybuilding at first. So what inspired and motivated you to become a bodybuilder, and how'd that eventually play out?
So after college, I wasn't competitive in sports anymore. I was a competitive cheerleader and had cheered and danced, done sports, pretty much my entire adolescent life up to that point. So once I graduated, I didn't have a competitive outlet. So I was kind of experimenting with basically anything that I could find. But before I found bodybuilding, I was actually dabbling in pageantry, which is super weird to say now. But when I did pageants, I came to find that I really liked the swimsuit portion of it and like the modeling aspect of that, and had aspired to become a swimsuit model, but wanted something to compete in as well. So I kind of stuck around that for a little bit, and then one of my friends at a gym that I used to go to every now and then, she did a bikini competition, and I saw it, and I was like, wow, that could be the competitive aspect for me, because pageantry really wasn't it wasn't my scene. I wasn't very interested in it, and it wasn't my thing. So I was looking for something else, and I kind of stumbled into it.
Were there any myths or misconceptions that you had about the sport before you got into it? Because in the general public, there's so many different opinions that people have about it, and there's a lot of, like I said, myths out there. Were you concerned at all, or was it one of those things where you just wanted to dive right in and see what happens?
So I was super excited to start it, but I think you could kind of bunch me in with the general public there at first. I didn't have a weightlifting background. I didn't ever do sports like that. Like I said, I was a dancer and a cheerleader. I ran track. I didn't do anything about that. So basically, any misconception that you can have about the sport, I probably had. I was very ignorant on the topic of nutrition, especially. I was always a kid that could eat whatever I wanted, never watched my food intake, ate the junkiest food. And then as far as weight training and training in general, I had absolutely no idea about any of that. I had never been exposed to that. We didn't really have those resources for the youth in the community like that when I was growing up. So it's basically been from the very beginning, me just kind of learning from absolutely nothing. I had no foundation.
What was that phase that everyone likes to lovingly call the beginner gains phase? How did you enjoy that? Because that is the highlight for so many people's journey, because it never gets any better from that. What was that like when you first started seeing the changes?
So I will be completely honest with you. I feel like I really just hit that a couple of years ago. I've been competitive for several years before that, but I never really had the coach that I do now. I didn't have the information. I didn't have the friend group. I didn't have the knowledge to kind of capitalize on those gains. So I really just hit that a couple years ago, and the last year, and it's been really crazy to see how significantly you can change your body in such a short amount of time. And that was something that I never really thought that would be a thing. So I'm kind of enjoying that as we speak.
And this is also so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport. And the mental changes that you happen to acquire 100 times more potent than any of the physical changes. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
Mentally, it's been really tiresome. It's been a huge learning experience. Um, I've kind of struggled mentally anyways with several topics in life, but kind of adding the heaviness that is bodybuilding on top of that, it's just taken a lot of learning to kind of reshape my habits and reshape my thinking patterns to where they help me to be more successful. It's been a really like interesting and fun journey though.
Absolutely, and it's always a work in progress too. You're never going to completely fulfill either your mental or the physical requirements really of the sport. I mean, it's always improving. And nutrition, I mean, that is something that is not talked about as nearly as much as it should be. What were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made as you got started in the sport?
So like I said, like I was always one of those kids that could eat, drink, do whatever I wanted. So I had for lack of a better word, a very diet, like lots of processed foods, chips, candies, like borderline fast food kind of stuff. So basically I had to completely teach myself completely new eating patterns. And that was, it was really difficult for me, honestly, because, not only had I never like learned how to eat healthy and to eat properly to fuel my body, but I came to find out that I also had like some emotions attached to eating. So like when I would feel down or when I would celebrate or special occasions, all of those had like food ties to them because that's kind of how I grew up in my family. Like if we celebrated, we did it with food. If we grieved, we did it with food. Like I had a very food centric life. So kind of putting my feelings of that to the side and relearning to be successful in this sport, it's been a big challenge. And I'm still not very good at it, but I'm a whole lot better than I was.
The South is also notorious for having a lot of really good fatty foods. How hard has it been for you to sort of give that up, at least for a part of the year?
So this past year actually hasn't been bad. Like in previous preps, I've had like big cravings, especially for like those fried, crunchy foods and stuff like that. This time around, I didn't really have cravings at all. So I think it's just like constantly reinforcing those habits and like keeping that in mind. But like most importantly, like I think that stuff is very addictive. So like the more you eat it, the more your body craves it and wants it. So for me, it's just been like completely reducing that so that I don't have to really deal with that.
Yeah. This is how northern I am. I've never had a grit in my entire life.
Okay, so I will tell you, as far as grits go, I was a grit hater up until Junior USA's a couple months ago. I'd always told my fiance that they tasted like if you mix like sand with like the oatmeal slop. And I had just never had good grits. We went out for brunch the day after a show. I had some of the best grits in my life. I strongly urge you to go somewhere that knows their grit.
I do got to ask though, what is that moment like when the food that you haven't had for so long finally touches your mouth after going on a prep? What is that feeling like? Do you even taste it or do you just inhale it?
I very much savor it, but it's like those first few bites you really like relish it, and then like the rest of it's kind of gone. So I'll have like little treats and like a couple meals that I really enjoy. That's kind of what I have been doing after show the past couple of times. But in previous shows, like I've struggled like a lot of other competitors have, where I've just like binge ate like junk for like anywhere for a couple of weeks to a couple of months after a show, and like that's a hard place to be.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I love to also talk genetics on this podcast because no one's built the same and everyone's built differently. But whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. Then they have that one body part that just even thinking about it causes them to shudder and shake a little bit. What's one body part that you've really just never really had to really focus on that much? And then what's one body part that you've just had to drag behind?
My quads have always grown like pretty well. I've always had pretty developed legs given my athletic history, but as far as body parts that are just tough, definitely my delts, man. I feel like I try to hammer delts so bad and see such minimal growth. Like they're my trouble area for sure.
Yep, for me it's the exact opposite where I'm 6'3", so my entire lower body is just don't even get me started. It's never, I mean, calves, that's the number one genetic body part of all time where don't, I mean, you're just either born with them or you're born without them. But yeah, I love asking that because so many people are just built differently. But also, when it comes to just this lifestyle as well, people don't realize the time commitment that it takes as well. It is not just the working out, it is not just the nutrition, it is so many more things in your life. Was it a struggle for you at all when you first got started to deal with that whole time commitment that this sport entails, or was it something that you didn't really struggle with? And how's it been as your career has gone on? Has it gotten easier?
So as far as like when I first really started getting into this, it was pretty difficult. At that time, I probably shouldn't have been in prep. I had so much going on and so many life stressors at that point. But like the time management aspect of it was absolutely killer because I had multiple jobs at the time. It wasn't ever a consistent schedule. And like just that like uncertainty mixed with how much time you have to put aside for that. It was constantly trying to like shuffle this schedule around and make things work. And I wasn't nearly as like dedicated to the sport as I am now back then. So of course, like bodybuilding would take the back burner while real life came to the forefront, and I would miss my lifts. I would skip my cardio. Like I would go, a day without eating and then catch up on a couple meals. Like it wasn't a very like consistent or good situation. But each year that I've done this, I've gotten a little better each year. My goal is like not to struggle with the same thing twice. So if I struggle with something one year, it's my goal the next year to kind of get better at that particular situation that gave me a hard time. So it gets better every year.
And what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try?
Um, so I didn't really announce it to them at first, to be honest with you, because I knew that I wasn't going to receive a whole lot of support because I hadn't really in the past for any of my other endeavors. So I was pretty independent at that point and didn't really have a good relationship with my family either. So for my first like couple shows, I just kind of did them, and that was that. So once I kind of like rebuilt that relationship with my family, and they found out about it, like it had already been going on. So they had seen it through like social media, and they were kind of like, they kind of knew a little bit about it, but they were still really confused on all the aspects. So they were still offering me like the food, like I was talking about, and they didn't understand the nutrition aspect of it, or why I was losing weight so quickly, or any of that stuff. So it's been a learning journey for them as well.
Well, just back on the food one more time. So how hard are those family gatherings, even to this day? Like when you know that like you're just gonna have to see other people enjoying nice, tasty food while you might have to be there, with your salad or with your chicken or whatever you bring.
So, like, typically I already have a goal in mind these days when I go to one of these gatherings. So it's a lot easier for me now. It gets a lot more difficult when you have like the family members who are just generally unsupportive and they're like intentionally pushing this food on you and like almost mocking you about it. Like, those are the people that really get me. But I also kind of know how those folks are going to be. So if that kind of situation's going down and I'm deep in prep, I just don't go. I'm not going to like further stress myself out, like put myself in that situation. But, otherwise I do pretty well.
I mean, if the younger version of me was there, I would be that crazy kid where I would order a pizza and then just have it opened up and outside of your room. Like if you were staying overnight, I would find out where you're sleeping and then just leave the pizza opened in front so that you'd have to smell it. That's just the kind of torture that I would have done there. But yeah, I mean, again, the dedication, the drive that these competitors have is just, it is crazy in a good way. But getting ready for a show, a lot of mental things happen, but when it comes to stepping on that stage and, posing in basically a bikini in front of people, that's something that a lot of people in the general public would not be comfortable with doing. It just takes a lot of courage. Were you nervous at all ahead of time about doing that? Or was it one of those things where you're just like, I've worked my butt off. I got to show it off then, I guess.
So I don't typically get nervous about just like walking on stage. I've been a performer pretty much my entire life. I've danced since I was like 4 years old. I've been a cheerleader since I was 10. So being in front of lots of people has just kind of been like normal for me. I really enjoy that like performative aspect of it. But as far as like bodybuilding and posing, like that was a completely different ball game. Like I had walked the runway in front of people. That's easy. Whatever. Like I had done pageants, whatever. But as far as getting up there and like accurately hitting a routine, that was tough at first. I had no idea what I was doing. So like naturally I didn't feel confident. I felt very awkward up there and that read in my performance. So really just getting over that is just practicing that every single day so that it becomes like muscle memory. You get up there and what basically happens to me is like I black out. Like mentally I can't recall what happened on stage, but it's like muscle memory. I get out there and I'm a little posing robot. I do my thing. I'm out and then my brain turns back on.
Guys, I have to do a little interruption. We have Apollo back there in the background for everyone. That's her Dalmatian. Like I've told her, I've always wanted to see a Dalmatian in real life. I never have, and she's fulfilling a lifetime dream of mine. That is, how old is he?
He's just over a year old. He turned one on April 17th. So
okay. Oh wow,
yeah.
that is awesome. So again, he will be in the dog version of the podcast that I'm currently working on, everyone. So yeah, that is great. And when it comes to the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
I really like my front pose, even though I don't feel like it's my strongest pose, just because of the aesthetic of it and like how you can tweak it different ways just to show off. As far as other parts of posing, like the back pose, I'm kind of indifferent toward it. You know, whatever. It's a mandatory. Transitions trip me up. Until I practice that quite a few times and I feel like comfortable with that movement pattern, I'm really awkward about it.
People do not understand that those transitions, yeah, that is when it comes to like the stuff that's the hardest for a lot of people. I've heard transitions so many times because it's just to make them look fluid and to make them look natural. It takes a certain personality, I think, to really just be able to do that without that much training or anything like that. But
Yeah. I think it's super important to have a posing coach, especially when you first get started, because a good posing coach is going to help bring out your personality on stage and help make you feel confident, but they're also going to give you that knowledge on how to hit those poses and, you know, to hit them properly to show off your particular physique. That's something I didn't really have when I first got started, so I couldn't like properly showcase myself. I was doing like snippets of other people's routines that I had kind of like gathered off of like Instagram and stuff. And that's just, you're not really setting yourself up for success in that situation.
What is your favorite part about show day and the least favorite part about show day?
My favorite part is just like the busyness of it. Being backstage and just like the hustle and bustle, like how hectic it is. I kind of love it, kind of hate it, but like you meet so many awesome people and you hear so many stories and like that's your time to like prepare to show it all. As far as like my least favorite, it's probably the like hurry up and wait up of it. Like hurry up and get back here so you can sit here for several hours. Like that's probably my least favorite part because I'm a little bit impatient.
I mean, I've only been to a couple shows, but I was shocked at how long of a period of time between prejudging and finals, how they give you just so many hours where it's like, yeah, these people that are half starved to death, you know, just give them more time before they can finally eat and stuff like that. Let's torture them even more than they already torture themselves, basically. So yeah, I don't understand that myself as well, but yeah, I mean, and it's also sort of a sisterhood, especially with the female competitors that I've talked to, where everyone seems to really get along and people really do care about each other. How important is that to you? Because that is a rarity in a lot of sports that you have competitors that like genuinely care about each other.
It truly is. And that was one of the aspects that kind of made me love this sport more because my first couple shows, I was very much like intimidated by the whole process. I was one of those quiet people that sat off to themselves and like made themselves really nervous, just kind of watching the hustle and bustle instead of embracing it. And so once I kind of like got more into the sport and got a little bit more well versed, I kind of tried to like be that person that like went around and like chatted with people. Like if I saw someone that felt uncomfortable that I like thought may need like a little pick me up, I would like go compliment their hair, compliment their suit, like just gas people up. And I've met so many awesome people just backstage and like people that I've only met once. We've connected on Instagram, and like we maintain like those online friendships, and it's just awesome to have like that support throughout like your competitive season.
I call it joint suffering because you guys have gone through what because you guys have gone through a prep and all that stuff that is so hard. It's yeah, it's something where it's you guys are like, oh, we've all been through the same thing. It's a real bonding event. I will say, at least personally. But when you finally are done with everything, like you said, you get all the food, you get all that other stuff. We got to talk about post-show blues, because that is one thing that, again, most people aren't aware of. One of the other myths and stereotypes I deal with a lot of the times that makes me just want to strangle that person is like, oh, they work out that much, they must look like that 24/7 that they look like on stage, and you're like, oh my god. But they don't understand that you're not going to look like that 24/7. But how do you deal with the mental side of things where it's like you're not going to look that good as you look on stage for probably more than a day at the most? You are going to have to put on weight. And again, it is healthy. Let's be honest. It is the healthy part of the sport, is putting the weight back on, because you cannot stay like that lean forever. It would not be good for you. But how do you still deal with that mentally of, no matter how hard I work, I'm never going to be able to maintain this look?
So I think most of us that compete, unless we're first time competitors, we kind of know, especially coming into show day, that like this moment is almost over. And I think we each kind of handle that differently. And I know from year to year, it's been kind of different for me on how I've personally handled it. Last year, the transition into off season, putting on that weight, like it was easy for me. I was ready for it. This season has been a little bit harder. This is the shortest season that I've had in several years. So like to do one show and to be done, it was like this big culmination and then boom, over. And that was hard for me. So this time around, it's been like mentally a little bit more difficult to stay on my meal plan. Like I'm not as into like posing in my suit so much as like posing in my clothes. I don't wear my sports bra to the gym. It's about like making myself feel comfortable in the moment and slowly like getting used to this, because I think we all kind of hit like a post show time where we just look at our body and we're not comfortable. And that's kind of where I'm at, and that's where I've been for the last little bit. But like we know that that's where the progress is made. Like we know that that's a very necessary thing. So it's just like constantly reassuring yourself, taking in like your new PRs, your progress in the gym, like how your clothes are fitting you. It's like taking in these like little things that you see the progress in to kind of like reassure yourself. But it is tough, and sometimes like it's not just me on my own. I need to like reach out to my fiance or reach out to some of my other friends that do bodybuilding, because they're the people that can kind of like talk me through this the best. So I definitely encourage people to have at least a couple people in your corner, especially post show. So it's really helpful.
Well, speaking of clothes, you basically just have to have two wardrobes: your off-season wardrobe and your prep wardrobe.
Yes. Yes. And typically, like, I've been in prep in summer the past 4 years. So to not be in prep in summer, all my clothes are a little snug right now. I'm used to my winter clothes being a little more tight fitting. So that's kind of throwing me off too. Like, I'm about to have to get some more clothes.
Well, and let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman, especially as you get closer to a show, when you're walking down the street, even dressed the way you are right now. If you were in prep, I mean, you're going to get a lot more people's attention. I compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where it's human nature when they see something that's not of the normal to just be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. How have you dealt with that? Because I've talked to so many people where that is just a shocking revelation to them when they realize that, just by working out more, they are going to draw more people's attention.
Yeah, so I've especially noticed that this last year, because I had a pretty good prep. I got really lean, and like honestly, those like stairs kind of make me uncomfortable. So usually when I'm going out in public, I won't wear like crop tops. I don't wear anything like super fitted. I'll wear like looser, baggier clothes, sundresses, something kind of flowy. That way I can just kind of like blend in. I very much I don't really like want attention when I go out and about. I want to get my errands done. I want to enjoy myself and I want to go home. I'm very much introverted.
Which again, it's the big anomaly of this sport is that I've had so many introverts on, and yet they go on stage and they pose in front of hundreds of people. I've always thought that like, okay, that's an anomaly right there. But it's just like with me too, where it's I'm the biggest extrovert, but like if you meet me in public, I just have that Midwestern side where like you have to be introduced to me first before I can finally unload everything on you. Like I'm not just gonna come up to you and start talking to you because it's not because I'm shy, it's because that's rude. That's just how I was raised, basically. But like, no. So it's again, there's so many anomalies in people's lives, but I find it hilarious. But also, we got to talk about the body dysmorphia as well because it's a little, it ties a little bit with post show blues, but I find it funny, and I find it funny, and not in a harmful way, but I find it funny that I talk to some of the most in shape people on the planet, and they still struggle with stuff like that. Where when I was first getting started in this lifestyle, I honestly believed, because I was probably like 17, 18, I believed, hey, if I got in really good shape, I probably would never feel bad about myself ever again. I'm laughing thinking about that right now, how it's just the dumbest thing ever. But are there any tips or tricks that you use to sort of try to combat that body dysmorphia? Because no matter, I mean, I've talked to Mr. Olympias, I've talked to Miss Olympias. It's no matter how big you get, no matter how much size you put on, like it's never going to go away.
Yeah, yeah. So, one habit that I've been trying to get better about, especially in off season, is I'm a big picture taker, but I've noticed that when I'm in the off season, my picture taking drastically decreases, especially of myself. And so I've tried to get in more of the habit of still taking those pictures and maybe not looking at them in the moment, but in like a month or two, going back and look at them and like kind of appreciating where I was because um, from like the bodybuilding side of things, we're all extremely neurotic, I think. Like, it's never going to be good enough. We can always improve. We're always going to pick out these things that are imperfect about ourselves that we want to work on. Whereas, you know, you're like more normal people, like that's really outstanding to them. Like that's something really special. To us, that's normal.
That's why
So
I laugh when I get messages from people saying like, "Hey, do you think I look ready for a show?" And I'm just like, "Look in a damn mirror, you idiot." Yeah, basically. But
yeah,
again, that's coming. I always tell them that's coming from the opinion of a guy that's never competed, though. So again, take my advice with a grain of salt. But I understand 100% where they're coming from when it comes to like judging themselves against others at a show. But I always just got to take the sarcastic side and be like, "Why?"
and that's helpful. We need that. We really do. We need someone to like bring us back down to earth sometimes because when you're that close to the show, like you're not thinking clearly. You're extremely hard on yourself and like you're not seeing yourself the way everybody else is seeing you. Even if they are a bodybuilder, even if they're your grandma, like you're not seeing yourself like they do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And getting onto that prep brain, I love to talk about prep brain because it's just fascinating how much the brain can betray you as you get leaner and leaner for a show. Do you have any funny prep brain stories?
Uh, a lot of mine have to do with time management. I had my first like big slip up this past prep. My grandfather has had some like health issues, and he's been in a facility where I've been visiting him, you know, as frequently as possible. And I also have my dance and tumbling studio, so trying to like schedule everything in order to get all of that stuff done has it was really challenging. But I was sitting with my grandpa like a couple days out from show and had scheduled a private lesson with a kid to work on some tumbling. Me and my grandpa are having like the best visit we've had in a long time. He's feeling really good. We're sharing like funny stories together. And all of a sudden, I get this message, and this parent says, "We're here for our private lesson. Just wanted to make sure you were okay." And in that moment, I immediately froze. I had no idea what to do. My grandpa thought something was seriously wrong, and I had to like explain to him, and then just kind of like went out there and like explained this situation, this family. Thankfully, they were really understanding and helpful. But like how forgetful I get in prep, even with a Google Calendar and reminder set on my phone is kind of insane. Like, I forget a ridiculous amount of things and put myself in lots of awkward situations.
That has happened to me a handful of times on this podcast where I'll get a message on Instagram from someone. I'll be like, I didn't expect this. And they're like, I'm waiting to go whenever you're ready. And I'm just like,
Oops.
yeah, that's happened about a handful of times. So luckily it happens about less than 1% of the time. But yeah, so I do understand that. But I was going to talk about, because I do see on your Instagram, I was looking through and you do a lot of like dancing stuff, especially on your stories. When you put on the size, does it make dancing and tumbling easier or does it make it more harder?
So with the size, tumbling is definitely easier, and you have a lot more energy, obviously. Like, you're taking in more and your body's just generally stronger. So I love to tumble in off season. It's a whole lot of fun. As far as like dancing, it doesn't particularly impact that, but flexibility definitely does. Definitely.
I used to be very flexible, and then when I started to put on the size, then I realized the hard way that, like, yeah, it does not.
It's hanging around, yeah.
There's a reason why you never see bodybuilders in dance companies, basically. So there's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But no,
Like,
that
stretching and like stuff like that was something I had to like actively and consistently be focusing on, because for a while, like, I didn't stretch, I didn't teach dance or tumbling. And as I was like putting on body mass, I noticed like, dang, my back is not flexible anymore. Like, my splits kind of hurt. And I was like, oh man, like, I've got to stay on top of this or this is going to be completely gone.
I know. I used to be able to do the thing where you could I could lock both my hands behind my back when you're like
Yeah,
reaching around. And then it got to a point where I can do it now again because I did lose a little bit of it, but like it got to a point where I couldn't do that, and I was like, okay, maybe it's time to downsize a little bit. Like if I can't, I was like, that's my limit. Where it's like if I can't lock my hands behind my back, basically, then that's But that was There's always the little fun things that you do with yourself. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Kandee, we made the decision. You can change one thing about the bodybuilding sport, lifestyle, whatever you want. Everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you'd like to see change? And granted, I know that some people have more than one idea, so you can do as many ideas as you want. I just did the one just to start off.
Honestly, like, I've never thought so much about like changing the bodybuilding industry so much as like changing myself to fit the bodybuilding industry. So that's a really like interesting.
Well, you can do yourself. We can do that too if you want.
um, so as far as format goes, that's one pet peeve that I kind of have, because we talked about like, I really like to schedule ahead and have things very well planned out. I wish we could keep one format. Morning show and evening show, just morning show, just evening show. Can we get this like consistent across the board, especially for like amateur competitors? Because I know last year when I competed, I had 3 different formats. I had a morning show first, then I had one that was both, and then my last show was evening show only. So like, it really, especially like our beginning competitors, it really kind of throws them for a loop because there's no consistency with that. That's one pet peeve I do have.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I know why they try to have a little break in between, because they do want you to like get a little bit of food in you and like get a little stuff in there. But it's like, it's especially when I go to some of these shows and then they have you pay for the prejudging and then they have you pay also for the finals too. And you're like, why can't you just sell them together, first of all, and just have that be the same price? Because like, I remember thinking first off when I first started having these guests, I'm like, how do these promoters make money? And then I looked at the ticket prices and then I thought, oh yeah, that's how they do it. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, that'll do it. It's funny because I was at a show this last week and I went to that same venue to go see one of the biggest comedians in the world. The tickets for the bodybuilding show were more expensive than the tickets to the comedian.
Oh my gosh. Why? Like, that's not surprising to me.
It's gotten to a point where it's like, I mean, some of those, I mean, they were getting pretty close to Minnesota Vikings tickets. So if you're like, if they're that expensive for like an NFL game, it's like, guys, come on now. But again, I had a good time, but yeah. And just, I got to say the C word now, cardio. I hate it more than life itself when it comes to that dreaded thing. What is your relationship like with cardio?
Cardio and I had a very not good relationship up until the past couple of years. Big cardio hater, especially for any kind of distance. But as I get more into this sport, I kind of learned to utilize that time. Like, used to, I would distract myself by reading. This last prep, I actually used my cardio time to take a sign language class. So that
Wait,
was
wait, wait,
really,
wait. You said reading. You're able to read when you're moving around and doing all that stuff? Because to me, that would just hurt my brain.
yeah. I used to get on the elliptical and I would open my book and just do my thing.
So like, were you pedaling or were you walking?
I was walking on the
Oh,
elliptical.
okay, walking on the elliptical. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
because got it.
it's a little, yeah. I don't do treadmill, so elliptical is a little bit easier to do it with. I would never dare do that on like a
I
treadmill or
thought I
outdoor.
thought you were talking about like treadmill, and I was like, good God, like
No,
what is wrong with her if she's trying to read doing a treadmill basically? So
no, no.
I had to clarify because I didn't want people to comment down below and was like, who's this psychopath that he decided to interview or something like that, trying to read while walking, basically.
No, I do not advise that. Please don't do it. And if you do, you didn't get the idea from me.
Exactly. I have to endorse. It's like whenever someone says something that's like a little bit, you gotta be like, okay, we do not endorse that view, everyone, just to get it out there. Don't try to do it. Although, if you are gonna try, at least send me a video of you trying to do it, everyone out there, and I will laugh at that, seeing you try to like read and narrate something. But so then you took a sign language class too.
Yeah. So this last prep, I took a sign language class online. So 1 to 2 days out of the week, I would use all my cardio time to like go through my courses and take my quizzes and stuff. And shortly after my competition, I finished up the class, and now I know a little more sign language.
So I want to see if you know this one because there was a deaf girl that went to my school and she taught me one thing. And granted, she is from Wisconsin, so this might have to do. But let's see if you know what this means.
Would that be make something?
It means
What?
cheesehead.
Because
She was a Packer fan. Yeah.
so I was confused
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. That's what she taught. I don't know if she was lying to me, but that's the only thing I remember from sign language is that she taught me at cheesehead apparently. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's what that means. But yeah, and then we had another. Well, actually, my kindergarten teacher, she had a deaf son, so then she taught us some stuff. But like, I learned a little bit of the alphabet, but I don't remember most of it now. But now it's funny because some of my friends that are now teachers, they also learn sign language because they do special education teaching. So they try to be all funny when, and like if they're trying to like have a secret conversation with each other when we're around, they'll do some sign language. And I was like, and then I always do this to them. I go, "Oh, I got a sign language for you right here," and then I always just do that or something like that. But yeah. So no, but that's I love doing that type of stuff. But yeah, just sign language. Yeah, that is a great thing to learn. But sleep, we got to talk about sleep real quick because that is like I was talking to you last night. Thank God that you were scheduled this podcast because I honestly got up. I would have been 15 minutes late if we would have kept our original time. Just because I looked at my watch. It's the weirdest thing. Like I looked at my time. I was like 11:15, and I had a panic for like 5 seconds. I was like, oh wait, we rescheduled it. It's fine. It's good now, everyone. But what is your relationship like with sleep? Because that is just the most important thing. Not even you don't even have to be a bodybuilder, but it's the most important thing. Like how do you, especially as you get closer to preps too, sleep becomes ever more elusive for so many people that I talk to.
Yeah. So like if there's one thing that I'm really good at as far as like life and this sport goes, it's sleeping. Like my sleep never falters. It's pretty primo. I usually get at least 8 hours in of sleep, but even in prep, I don't think this prep I dropped below 6. So I'm a pretty avid
How
sleeper.
do you do it? Is it just naturally, or is there a magic pill that you take that I need to buy?
No, so like what I usually do is I'll take a couple melatonin for before bed, but also about an hour before I go to bed, I'll usually smoke. So that's very helpful. um, but both of those things help me sleep a lot, as well as like Delta 8 gummies and stuff like that. If I'm having a really tough time sleeping, I'll take one of those before bed, but that's like way deep into prep, like 4 weeks out kind of stuff.
Me and my brother have been trying to convince my mom for years to start taking gummies to like go to sleep because she has trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
She was just that. I mean, they're just that ultra Midwestern where like we don't associate with any of that type of stuff and all that stuff. But like we've been trying to convince her for years to be like, Mom, there have been so many people that we've talked to that like have impact, and they're like, I just don't want to get addicted. And then we got to explain that you cannot get addicted. It's not possible. And it's hilarious. Like, I need to film it one of these times, just broadcast, just be like, this is how like dumb my parents are on that topic. But yeah, I've been trying to convince them for years, and we've heard so many people that have talked about, the benefits. I take melatonin myself, and that helps. Just, I try to not take it as much, because then I heard that like you can sort of not get addicted to it, but like when you don't take it, you like just can't sleep.
Yeah, I heard that as well. I haven't been brave enough to try it because, like I said, I love sleeping. So
Yeah, no, you're one of the lucky ones, I will say. The most of my guests talk, they just say, sleep, what's that? Never heard of her. And, hey, you win some and you lose some. But, I mean, when we do talk to you a year from now, I'd love to have you back on a year just to see what you've been up to. Where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals you'd like to have achieved?
um, so in a year from now, I would like to have at least one or two more national level shows under my belt. Of course, like the fewer is more optimal, but I have a really fun time doing that. But mostly, I just want to have a completely different looking body next year. I want to have different proportions. I want to have bigger delts, bigger glutes, the things that fit my criteria. But personally, I would like to have a happy marriage at that point. I'm getting married in like a month. And other than that, I would like to continue to grow my studio. My goal with that has been to open a recreation center for the past year and a half or so. So I keep like looking into these details and trying to find out stuff to make that happen. So those are my big three.
Well, congratulations on the engagement and the wedding. I will say this will be coming out close to your wedding, so that will be great. Okay, what was the mental battle like with the wedding dress, and being that your weight can fluctuate at times? So how did you, I mean, we talk about prep and all that stuff, but like, what was that like, being like, okay, I got to find out what I'm going to look like then for that wedding, being especially that you're a bodybuilder?
So I actually got my dress a month after we got engaged. I was still in the off season at this point, and I knew that I was not about to be in prep around my wedding. So I got it for my off season body. So luckily, we haven't had to change that or had any difficulties with that. But I was really thinking ahead on it. I just knew that wedding and prep probably not going to mix well.
I talked to one person, I'm not going to name names, but they wanted to go with their stage look basically for their wedding dress, and do not recommend that. That would be, yeah,
tremendously stressful, especially if you're not getting married like shortly after your show. It just seems like a really bad time.
Yep, absolutely. I was thinking that myself. Luckily, they did get married like 2 weeks after their show, so it didn't turn out so bad. But even then, I was just like,
Still stressful.
still stressful to the max. But yeah, and lastly, what advice do you have for someone who's just looking to get in shape, just to get started? Because so many people don't understand that just taking that first step in the gym is just the most important thing. But what advice do you have for people just to get started in their journey? Because there's a lot of people, I think, that really need to start considering getting in shape, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, really just utilize your resources, and you have a lot more resources than you think. Obviously, like everyone has those online resources, but I know like the gym, like the whole gym facility thing can be pretty intimidating at first, especially if you're not very well versed in exercise or anything like that. Talk to the people in your gym that you see there regularly. Like 9 times out of 10, these people are really nice and they want to help you and they want to give you this information to succeed. Like nobody who is like actually into fitness wants anybody to fail as far as fitness goes. Everyone's usually been really open and honest with their information, and sometimes maybe cross-reference that, because some of these people are going to give you bad advice, but it's up to you to look into that. But the people in the gym want you to be successful, and like you're not ever going to be like awkward talking to somebody. Like people don't care, and regardless of what you think going into this, like people are not staring at you, people are not watching you. Nobody there cares about what you are doing in the gym. Everyone is so focused on what they're doing themselves, like they don't have time to look at you.
I think from this podcast we can safely say if anyone ever recommends reading a book on a treadmill, then that's when that's when like I don't need to follow any of their advice at all. That's the one thing that we got from this episode at
Yeah.
least. But yeah, I mean, I found that these are some of the nicest people on the planet too, especially, which is why I love still having him on and talking to him, because there has always been that stereotype of just the gym bro that just cares about themselves and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's like 1% of it. Everyone's
Yeah,
everyone's
you're
everyone's met those people where you're like, you're doing such a disservice to everyone else that's ever existed in the gym. They just communicate in grunts. They don't even know like how to even like socialize. But like the vast majority of are so nice. And yeah, I highly recommend just walking up to people. Now, honestly, you got to know when to talk to them. Don't be talking to them mid set while they're just like doing that
yeah,
stuff. A lot of people don't understand
friend.
that, where they just think, oh, it's free reign, just to go up and talk to people. But yeah, you got to know the perfect timing too. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Kandee, it was so great to have you on. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just like my fiance, my coach, all the people that stand by me and support me in off season and in season. Those guys are super important to me, and I love them, and I'm so thankful for them.
Absolutely. Again, everyone, I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. Buyer beware, you will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Kandee, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.